Good morning, everybody. This is Monday morning, 7 o'clock Central U.S. time, and we are starting the Energy Realities podcast of the worldwide team of the Energy Realities podcast hosts. I've got Dr. Tammy Nemeth in the UK. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fabulous today. It's so nice out. It's the perfect 21 degrees outside. Before we started, I said I was going to sit outside, but the birds are so loud. It would be such a distraction, but it's a gorgeous day here. Finally, I don't know how many wind turbines are turning, but maybe some of those solar panels are generating electricity.
There you go.
Wow.
We can always
kind of cool. You bet. And next, coming around the corner, we've got the Irina Slav. I mean, she is the Irina Slav out of Bulgaria. How is your garden and your latest endeavors going on?
My garden's fine. Things are growing up nicely, thank you. But we're going to get some colder weather towards the end of the week, so we'll see how this goes. But my cherry trees, my little cherry trees that we planted last year, are going to fruit this year. So very
nice.
good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I planted 7 fruit trees in the last 3 years, and finally getting there between peaches and apples, and so it's kind of nice.
Oh, you can grow peaches?
Yep, got it. I'm trying to grow everything.
You can't grow peaches. Too cold.
Pears and apples and plums, Yeah, too cold.
All right. Next, coming around the corner, we got the grumpy old man from Texas. How are you, almighty David Blackmon? I mean, not just a David Blackmon, but the David Blackmon, Forbes author, Daily Caller, and all-around good guy. How are you, sir?
I'm not a good guy either, but I'm not grumpy. Okay, don't call me that. Damn it. So I'm great. It's wonderful. It's beautiful here in Texas. It's going to get cool again on Wednesday, which I'm really looking forward to because it was hot all weekend and had to spend $2,300 on my air conditioner at our rent house. And oh my God. Anyway, tough weekend.
I thought you
but
said
at least I didn't get
grumpy.
shot at like the Secret Service and the president. So.
All right. I thought you said you weren't grumpy, but we're going to open this conversation up because this is an open-ended conversation this morning about how net zero started the energy policies all these years ago. We have the Strait of Hormuz with the impacting $1 billion billion barrels of oil missing off of the market. How is that impacting anybody following net zero? I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there to Dr. Nemeth. How do you think the EU is actually going to handle the lack of petroleum products out of the Strait of Hormuz?
That is a really good question. I'm not sure. You get Dan Jorgensen, who's like the energy guy, and then you have Ursula von der Leyen saying stuff, and they make these comments all the time, and it's like they have directives, and it's kind of like they think they're Jean-Luc Picard or something. I'm making this command, make it so. And everybody else is kind of like, well, what do you mean by that? Make what? How are we supposed to do this? So there's always these directives coming down. Who knows what is actually going to happen? But I think what's unfortunate, especially in the EU and the UK, is they're tripling down on net zero, where they believe that the only way to avoid another crisis is to not have any oil and gas. And they make these statements. The UK, Ed Miliband last week had a really lengthy speech where he said, and I took some notes because it was hilarious, that opposition to clean energy comes from a coalition of naysayers and defeatists. And I thought, having read Alexander Solzhenitsyn, that this is the Soviet way, where whenever something didn't work according to plan, you blame the wreckers. You blame everybody else except your plant. And how, they just didn't want to see the Soviet program work. Our experiment was, we made all these plants and these guys are wrecking it. And that's that attitude on net zero, is that if you criticize it, you're somehow a naysayer and defeatist. And, Ed Miliband actually said, you can't solve a fossil fuel crisis by doubling down on fossil fuels. Well, actually, you can. The 1970s and 1980s and 1990s would disagree with that statement. I think it was Chris Kiefer on the Decouple, where he had been talking to Doomberg, gave a huge list of all the things that Europe and the UK did and the world did in the wake of the 1970s energy crises. And it was like they built refineries, they went and did oil and gas development in the North Sea. There's still space for that. There's lots of domestic resources on land in both the European Union and in the UK that could be developed if they wanted to, but they're choosing not to, and instead doubling and tripling down on what hasn't been working. Why is the grid in such a terrible state in the UK and the EU? It's because of net zero. And because they were so committed to this green idea, the green dogma, that they didn't build what needed to be built in order to be able to weather this kind of interruption. So, doubling down on what hasn't worked isn't going to work. But but I think Irina will have a better idea. Yeah. I think Irina will have a better idea of what's going on in the EU. But for just one last thing, if we're talking about prices, the heating oil price, for example, there's still quite a lot of people in the UK that use heating oil for their heat. And on March 6th, it was at 61 pence per liter, and it peaked at £1.37, and now it's kind of sitting at £1.06 per liter. So I mean, it's gone up significantly, and the same thing with the gas and diesel prices. But again, it's because they don't have the storage, they don't have the refining capacity because of net zero.
Is the UK down to 2 refineries now, if I remember right, or is it 1 or 2? I mean, it's almost.
I think it's 2. Yeah,
two refineries. So when you take a look, I think I was looking at you're importing 40% to 60% or more of what you use. Those things can't handle much more, and one breaks, and it's like, oops.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm sure they have some storage, but who knows how long it is.
Oops. Well, Irina, what do you think about the EU going on?
Well, I think they're going to handle the crisis badly, as they usually do. But it was interesting what Tammy mentioned about North Sea and new oil supply, locally sourced, homegrown, as it were.
Homegrown.
Yeah, it reminded me of the latest by Fatih Birol, who spoke to The Guardian and said that this crisis is going to leave a lasting mark on oil demand, whatever demand destruction. There will be some permanent demand destruction, but it's no use drilling for oil, boosting production from the North Sea, from the UK's North Sea section, because it wouldn't come fast enough to help with this crisis. So it's useless. You don't need to do it, which is really how arrogant can you get? How obvious can you get with your agenda? But the EU it's tripling down on net zero. I mean, latest data from Ember, our go-to source of transition news, is that China's exports of clean energy components, as they call it, has been at a record in March, with the EU being the biggest buyer. So yeah, they're doing this, and meanwhile we get the news that this last Sunday, yesterday, we hit, when I say we, I mean Europe, hit record negative prices for electricity because there was so much sun. So I don't know who needs to hear this, besides the EU leadership in Brussels, but negative power prices are bad for wind and solar developers. They're not good for them. They're not helping their profits, quite the opposite. So you will need to subsidize them even more, while they also subsidize fuel prices because these are up considerably.
Yeah.
So they don't know what they're doing, and there's precious little they can do, unfortunately. Because of
Well,
what
you know,
Tammy said.
it's interesting what you said that about Fatty Birrell saying it won't be online in time, so there's no point.
Yeah.
That's the same argument that they gave in Canada, why they couldn't build a pipeline, because it won't be ready in time for this current emergency. And it comes back again to what we've said before. What makes you think this is the last emergency? That there
Exactly.
won't be another one?
I would like to point out the Saudis built that pipeline 20 or 25 years ago, and it paid for itself in this
In
emergency.
7 weeks.
Yeah.
This last
Yeah.
7 weeks.
In
More
the
than
last
Exactly.
7 weeks, they've been pumping out almost 6 million barrels per day, whatever the number is, and that's a lot of money. Even by
Iraq
President
announced- I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
even by President Trump's standard, that's a lot of oil.
Well, Iraq announced over the weekend that they're going to invest $1.5 billion in a new pipeline to the Med that will be able to carry 2 to 3 million barrels a day. So that's good
Well,
to the Mediterranean. It'll take 3 or 4 years to get it done. I'm
Where
sorry,
are they going
Irina,
to get the money?
huh?
Where are they going
Iraq,
to get the money?
Iraq, not Iran. Iraq.
Yeah, where are they going to get the money?
Well, I don't know. I'm sure they'll have to borrow it, but ultimately, it's a good investment because ultimately, if you get the pipeline built, then you, regardless of what happens in Hormuz, the oil gets to flow to the Med and gets exported. So investors will get paid back. It may take a little longer than they want, but the rate of return is going to be really good on a project like that. And I think we're going to see every country that's adjacent to the Persian Gulf do the same thing. And that will be the one, I guess, one of the positive things that comes out of this crisis is, Iran over the weekend submitted a new settlement proposal that says, okay, we'll forego enriching uranium for 10 years if you give us control of the Strait of Hormuz. And the White House isn't going to accept that, but that's where this is probably going to end up at the end of the day. Is Iran's going to have de facto control over the Strait of Hormuz. But it's only going to do them some good for a couple of years until these pipelines, alternative routes get built. And it'll mean nothing to them in the end of the day. And in the meantime, the United States will probably maintain an embargo. I think this blockage at the Strait of Hormuz is going to be a much longer thing than we're being told right now. I expect it to endure at least towards the end of this year and probably into 2027 because there's just not going to be a fast solution to this unless the European countries want to send their navies over there to force the reopening. Because I think the White House, it seems to me, has decided that it's not worth risking American lives because that oil wasn't coming to the United States. It's not worth risking hundreds or thousands of American lives to liberate the Strait of Hormuz for the benefit of China and Europe and the rest of Asia. And so I think this is going to be a long-term thing.
But David, it wasn't Europe that started the whole thing.
I know. No, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. I understand.
So,
but I just think that just reading the tea leaves, it seems to me that's what's happening at this point. And
I think Trump has said it more than once, but geopolitics is not what it used to be. So
I know.
To keep
absolutely,
it civil.
It's all changed. And Stu, Stu's been kind of a prophet on this. He's been telling us for months that this was all going to change.
You bet.
And it has. And this is where we are.
To your point, David, these are brand new. I noticed this pipeline and an extension for this pipeline right here, which is the Oman pipeline. They've added this one in the last little bit. Here are the pipelines that you're talking about. They are brand spanking new. The Iraq
Or they're not
Uh,
built.
they're not. No, these are proposed. Purple
These are
is
proposed, yeah.
proposed. Yes. So these are all coming in right
Mm.
now as far as being proposed.
Yeah.
So I thought it was pretty interesting that you were pointing that out, and I was over there checking this out yesterday. So let me get rid of these.
So the proposed ones there, is that going? I thought there was one from Basra through Turkey.
Basra, this
That
one
would
is
make
the,
sense.
yep. And Turkey is still trying to become, which
Isn't that
is
The hub. They're
the
here.
hub. That has been their goal for the last 20 years, to be the natural gas hub to Europe.
Yeah.
The only problem with Turkey is you've got a NATO country that's been arming Iraq and sending missiles in. So it's a weird country to be trying to put in pipelines. Just a personal
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, it's all hard. You know, the terrain is not easy, right? Once you get off of the Arabian Peninsula, which is, you know, mostly desert land, and there are some mountains, but they're not enormous mountain ranges. But you get up north of there, and the terrain gets very, very difficult to build pipelines or anything really, rails or anything else. And so, you know, the Med to me is just, I just think from an economic standpoint, it's the obvious destination. And then, you know, you just have to maintain control of the Strait of Gibraltar at that point, but you bypass Hormuz and the two choke points on the Red Sea if you go straight to the Med. And I just think that's where most, if not all of this goes. And the problem with going to Turkey is that it's been an unstable country too. And you don't know how much you can trust the current government there, or what replaces it eventually. And so I think that these companies and these Middle East countries will probably shy away from trying to build over to Turkey to get out that way. The Med just seems to make too much sense to go anywhere else. But that's just me.
I have to admit, as long as Zelensky is in Ukraine, I would not want to be in a tanker running around, because he's proved that he could lob drones that way.
Well,
This
and that's
brings
the
up
other problem with going to Turkey, right? It's in the proximity of the Black Sea and the Ukraine war.
this brings down the ultimate point, and that is energy security starts at home. And I think that we're seeing larger drilling programs. China is investing more in. There's about 4 or 5 other countries that have really kicked off drilling programs. I want to throw this out to the team, and that is, if wind and solar had a supply line disruption, do you think the World Economic Forum would be then saying the world is going to be in a recession soon?
Well, I'm not sure why I would care what the World Economic Forum says about it, but yes, I think it's likely we're going to be in a recession soon, because high oil prices always produce recessions.
Okay, so I have to chime in here, because you know, the policymakers act shocked when there's these foreign shocks on prices. Oh my gosh, inflationary. But they're domestic policies, the carbon taxes, the contracts for different subsidies, the network charges, the permitting delays for hydrocarbons, for nuclear. All of that directly inflates the exact same prices, and it's sold as green progress. So it's like this inflationary arithmetic seems to only work when it's an externality rather than something that the Europeans or the UK or Canada's doing to themselves. It drives me crazy.
Well, it does. And it's not just, I mean, it's also gas taxes, right? Which was the topic we were going to talk about today originally. And, you know, that Europe has taxed the hell out of gas prices for I don't know how long, forever, which is a societal choice. I mean, that was the topic of the big Wall Street Journal story last Thursday, was how, you know, cheap U.S. gas is today, despite we all bitch about the price. It's up $1, but it's still half the price of what y'all pay in Europe. And and really even less than half, far less than half of what some of the countries over there are paying. And that's been just a societal choice that countries have made. But yeah, it's inflationary as hell, right? I mean, it increases the cost of all consumer goods. If you tax gasoline and diesel, because everything's transported using gasoline and diesel, you can't fly airplanes with big wind turbines on top of them. Solar panels aren't going to, power a ship across the Pacific Ocean. And it's that you're right. I mean, and it's not just the EU and Europe. I mean, policymakers in the United States do these stupid things, and the decisions they make, they say are great. They're wonderful, smart decisions, but externalities, anytime a crisis happens, and we're seeing it with gas prices in the United States. California's gas price has been $2 above the national average for 30 years. But Gavin Newsom immediately jumps on this crisis to blame Trump for high gas prices in California. And yeah, they've gone higher, but they've always been high. But unfortunately, most people are stupid enough to buy the propaganda. So, these politicians may not be smart, but they are clever.
Yeah. Well, it's like in Canada, Mark Carney made this huge deal about removing 10 cents a liter off of the gasoline prices. That's the excise tax. And it's temporary until September so that, people can go on their road trips and not have to pay as much. But on April 15th, or maybe it's at the end of this month, the clean fuel standard charges are increased and the industrial carbon price increases, which basically cancels out the 10-cent excise tax, because it's going to add another 10 cents a liter onto the price. So then they'll say, well, it's the gouging of the petrol stations that are increasing the price. It's not us, because we've removed this tax, even though they've added on other taxes that cancel out the one that they removed. I mean, it's just all you can do is shake your head. It's just so crazy.
See, Governor Newsom learned from the EU and the UK on how to do this, and he said, "Hold my beer." Right now, I talked to some tanker folks yesterday, and in the United States, we are facing quite exorbitant prices on the west coast of the United States. The last tankers from Asia are on the water. They are 3 weeks out. When you look at California imports 40 to 60%. They only have 6 refineries that are closing. They have one that's not said that they're closing. So their balance of jet fuel, diesel, and gasoline is 40 to 60%, depending on what they are trying to blend, mix, time of year, that whole mix. They've got to manufacture 40 to 60%, depending on the blend and everything else. It's a complicated formula. Here's the problem. They are maxed out on their import ports in California. The tankers on the water are the last deliveries California is going to be getting in the next few weeks. What's going to happen when those tankers unload? $10, $15 gasoline, cats and dogs sleeping with each other. It's going to be ugly. I love that line out of Ghostbusters. We've got a disaster of biblical proportions about to happen. Cats and dogs living with each other, and it's going to be wonderful. I mean, it's absolutely. And then we're going to blame solar panels for the cause of the rise in diesel. I mean, it's just absolutely the way that Gavin Newsom tries to deflect things.
Yes. I mean, but, again, he's not especially smart, but he is clever, in terms of politics, and it works for him in his state. And he thinks it's going to work for him at the national level and let him become the next president. So we'll see. It's a bold strategy. Huh?
How is it going to work if prices go a lot higher? How is he going to explain this away?
Trump.
How are people going to believe this? It will be too expensive.
But
I mean, the
he'll
ripple
blame
effect will
Trump.
be-
Yeah.
He can
Just
blame
like
Trump,
people,
but that doesn't help Californians, does it?
No, it doesn't. But
They
he
don't
doesn't
Same
care
care.
with
about
Europe. You can blame
Californians.
whoever you want, but that doesn't
Yeah.
help with prices.
I agree.
Blame will not help. So they'll have to, come up with some action for a change.
Sure.
I know
Just
how
like
it's
the action on the high-speed rail.
How is the EU and the UK going to handle the realignment that is appearing to be going on in the world right now? The EU, as you'd mentioned, says that the UK looks like they're doubling down and tripling down because the Muppet that's in charge is really Ed Miliband. I've never seen a more unintelligent man regarding energy policies, in charge of energy policies. That man is entertainment walking. How is the EU going to solve a gasoline problem coming around the corner and diesel problem? How's the UK going to solve it? And then how is the EU going to solve it? Because either they buy Russian, and Irina, I love that that they got a tanker that got diverted to going to the EU now. I mean, that's pretty cool.
It seems it is diverted to Spain based on what I saw from Giovanni Stelnovo from UBS. Yeah. I'm
So
amazed it's
what are
not
their
sanctioned.
options?
I don't know.
Are they going to reopen pipelines to Russia?
Well, I'm not sure Putin would reopen them if they asked him to. In fact, aren't new sanctions going into effect right now?
Yeah.
I have no idea. They're discussing the 21st package after 20.
Yeah.
So successful, it's going swimmingly.
But yeah, I don't know that Putin would even agree to reopen pipelines.
I wouldn't if I were him.
But... Right. So I mean, it's a real conundrum. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, a lot of tankers, of course, have come to the United States. Our exports have gone way up, but there's a pretty hard cap on how far they can go in the short term. In the longer run, they could go up significantly higher. But we're talking 2, 3, 4 years from now. We're not talking 2 months from now. And I do think there's going to be a ramp up in shale production in the United States, and Dan Yergin does too. And but it's not going to be we have about 530 active rigs in the United States right now, whereas 10 years ago there were almost 2,000. Okay, so that's how far it's fallen. But we're not going to go back to 2,000 active rigs in the United States. We might go to 700 maybe over the span of the next year and a half or so, which would create a pretty substantial supply response. But we're not going to triple that number and go up to, we're at 13.8 million barrels a day. We might get to 15 million barrels a day here in the next year and a half. I really believe that, but I don't think we're going to get to 18 or 19. So there's a real limit to how much additional exports the United States can do. Venezuela's going to ramp up. It's up 250,000 barrels a day since January. It might ramp up another 200,000 barrels a day by the end of this year. But these are small contributions, they're not making up a 10 million barrel a day supply deficit. And so
buyers get poorer, which is bad over the longer term.
Oh yeah, and it's going to create a recession. It is.
The EU or the Europeans are buying our strategic oil reserves, or the largest. I'm trying to find out how much. And I think Secretary Chris Wright said that it's a loan program, but I wouldn't trust the EU to return oil.
It has to get it from somewhere to return it.
That's what I mean. I'm just saying.
Program. I don't even understand that.
He said whoever is selling it out, it's a loan program.
Oh, it's a swap.
It's a swap.
There's the volume swap. Yes, right.
So that way he can control the budget and then add it back in. It's a budget move for him, which is a great thing. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes through.
Yeah.
I was being smart aleck.
No. But it also, the benefit also is that you don't further deplete those reservoirs and do more damage to them, like was done in the Biden administration. The salt domes that were
This is
damaged when we drew oil out of them too quickly. And that's a big part of what he's tried to avoid in this program. But again, that program's going to run its course by what, July, I think. And then what? I mean, China's not going to release their reserves. They're the smart one in all this. China's not going to. They got 1.2 billion barrels in reserve. They're not going to release any of that. They're hoarding that for their own security.
Yeah,
which
China
is
and
the
Japan
rational
have been
thing to do.
smart about it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. They're a rational actor. I always say that and people get pissed off at me, but China's a completely rational actor in all of this. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
they're
these
always
are
focused on their
facts.
national security.
This is a good, that was a good point. $1.20 on average in the 80s, adjusted for inflation, about $4.30 a gallon. I like this one. Is it the oil companies that regulate the price of their products, or is it world speculators? It's a good point. It's the world traders. And here's where I've got a serious question. Today, I haven't looked this morning, it was 105, whatever, $100 oil, Brent, whatever the number is.
107, yeah.
107. Paper versus physical. Physical delivery is 143 to 200, depending on the tanker, depending on where it goes.
Places, yeah.
So, and it always tracks to eventually paper meeting physical, and that we are at a point where the rubber band, if you take your finger, put a rubber band on it and shoot it, it goes straight up. What happens? It comes down and hits you or your wife in the head, and then you get hit by your wife. So you're going to get hit twice if you put the rubber band like this. So it's going to be a problem soon.
I wanted to add here about what David said with taxes being a societal choice. There's a lot that's been going on in the energy space in the EU, UK, Canada, Australia, and the United States to some extent. And a lot of it is linked back to globalization. So when you start offshoring your industry, your production, and everything else, because not just because it's a lower price for labor or whatnot, but when you start layering in all of these emission rules, the climate rules, the environmental rules, and so on, there's a choice there where all of that, the refining and all of that, was offshored because of the emissions. So they kept like the bare minimum, at least in the EU and the UK, they kept the bare minimum, but they offshored it out to the Middle Eastern countries and other jurisdictions where they didn't have to worry about the climate issues or the net zero issues or whatever. And now they're stuck because there's, once you get into a situation where those sea routes and whatnot are compromised or are, interrupted, then it's like, oh my gosh, we can't produce anything ourselves, which is why China is sitting pretty in all of this, because they have the industrial capacity, they have the storage, they have the refineries and whatnot. So they're sitting pretty for all of this because they've been benefiting the most from globalization than the rest of the world that has decided to embark on net zero. And China's like, yeah, sure, we're happy for you to go net zero because we win both ways. We have all the industrial capacity, we have reliable energy, and we'll export to you all the stuff you think you need for net zero. So we'll export to you the solar panels and the wind turbines and the battery systems and the EVs and everything else. And who's the main beneficiary of all of this is China. And this ought to be a wake-up call to the countries that had farmed out all of their stuff, where they offshored this and offshored that. I mean, when the Ukraine situation started, everyone was talking about friendshoring. Oh, we're going to friendshore, and we're going to do all that. What happened to that? It's like 4 years later.
It's expensive. It's expensive, Tammy. I just got the news that the US trade representative said that countries from that club, friendshoring club, should consider buying critical minerals at a national security premium. because they're not buying from China, so they should be ready to pay more, which makes sense. It sounds, it sounds funny, but it makes sense because that's the point. Move away from China. But China has developed all these supply chains. It's developed the industries, the capacities. So you would need to pay more if you're getting the materials from somewhere else where there isn't such a well-developed system of capacity and transport infrastructure and processing infrastructure and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so basically what you're saying, Tammy, is that the post-industrial economy idea is dead. You know, we were told that the Western world has moved on from industrial economies to a post-industrial economic system by outsourcing its industry. And now they're reaping what they sowed.
Yeah.
I would like to add, there's one major component, Tammy, to your wonderful points. And there is a feature that China has been putting into all of its electronics across all industries. And that is remote control, ability to shut down and spy hardware hard-coded into devices.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I think it's been demonstrated in different jurisdictions when they've actually looked at the boards and what they do and everything. But to go to Irina's point, one of the things about the critical minerals and all of the different supply chains that China dominates is that a lot of that has been subsidized by the state. So they'll have their national champions, and those national champions will get various benefits or whatever from the state to ensure that they dominate that particular part of the supply chain. So there was the case, and I think we've talked about this before on the podcast, of the cobalt mine. I think it was in America, and it was all ready to go. It was producing for about the first month or two, and then China flooded the market to put it out of business. And they've done that sort of predatory flooding of the market in order to ensure that they can remain dominant in that particular part of the supply chain. And, how do you compete with that? If people want the cheapest price, like you say, Irina, and price is always comes down to what's cheaper. People will go with what's cheapest, and the governments want to go with what's cheapest. But how do you do that in a global market where it's being, how can I say this kindly, where it's being manipulated by a potentially hostile actor? So
because they were able to get to this position. I'm sorry, everybody else let them get to this position.
Yeah.
Like I said.
So now you got to pay to make up
around,
for that.
Find out. Nobody thought it would come to this. I mean, nobody thought very much at all for the long-term implications of certain decisions that were made 30 years ago and since then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't just let them do it. We subsidized them to do it.
And
we
actively encouraged it. Yeah, because we were going to be, not we, the Western Europe.
Western, and the United States and Canada.
We're in the services business now. We don't need heavy industry.
Yeah, we just ship all that heavy industry and all those emissions over to China and, let them ruin their own society with all the pollution and everything. Yeah. And we thought we were so smart and smug in the Western world. And now, the bigger problem, even with the critical energy minerals, is you don't just have to acquire the minerals from a friendly source, but you have to figure out where you're going to process and refine them into actual products, right? And the manufacturing facilities to make the magnets from the rare earth minerals that are used in so many things. And that was where Biden, if you remember, in the summer of 2021, his first year in office, he makes this grand speech. We're going to mount a whole of government effort to reshore and friendshore all these minerals, get them out of the Chinese supply chains. And then about 3 weeks later, all his idiot people under Jennifer Granholm and all those dimwits that he put into cabinet positions realized, Well, we don't just have to go get the minerals. We got to build all those polluting things, all those refining facilities and they're polluting things. We don't want to pollute anything. So we can't do this. And they didn't do a damn thing for the next 4 years. Okay.
Yes.
And so now the Trump administration's having to scramble around and get all this stuff done and try to catch up from the 3.5 years of negligence by the Biden administration. So, but it's just what it is. And, I know Europe's going through the same thing, and it's we're paying the price of 40 years of stupidity. And, that's the way it is.
Can I just want to jump in about the service economy, because the service economy is now taken over by AI.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to make our whole economy based on services.
That's
that
a
the AI is going to take over.
Yeah.
But so the EU, though, announced 4 days ago their Accelerate EU, which is linked to their Repower EU, where it's all of this stuff about doubling down on electrification and, gee, it would be great if we had more nuclear. And they're doing some immediate relief, delaying nuclear power plant closures, financial help. And this is the same thing that Ed Miliband was talking about, to quickly install plug-in batteries and solar panels. So this was when Ed Miliband was like, we're going to make it so you can just buy it at Lidl, and you can take them off the middle of Lidl and put them up in your house and plug them in, and it'll be great.
These are not the these are not the kind of panels that can supply your whole house with electricity. Oh my goodness!
I know.
Yeah, they have cut some fuel taxes in some European countries, if not all.
Right. So the thing is, of course, all those different fuel taxes are each individual nation develops what kind of fuel tax they want to put on. So the EU is offering developing guidance on how they can basically get all the countries in the European Union to agree to remove the fuel taxes. Now, if I remember correctly, it was in the 1980s when oil prices crashed, and they were really worried that people would go back to their wasteful ways of consuming oil and gas or whatever. And so they agreed that they would put these excise taxes and whatnot onto the fuel prices to keep the prices high enough that people wouldn't waste, but low enough that it wouldn't create too much inflation in the economy. The thing is, once the prices started increasing again, they never took them off. They just kept adding more and more taxes on. And honestly, the environmentalists, that's what they want, is they want the high prices in order to discourage people from using oil and gas and having a proper car, and instead go and buy an EV. And the EU is like, yeah, see, this is so great. Everybody wants an EV now.
Yeah, until they see electricity prices.
Yeah.
Until
these are going up as well.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'd like to give everybody watching on our YouTube channels a shout out. I'm looking at, here's where I think it's really kind of frustrating. Our StreamYard is showing 35. I've got 1,000 people on my YouTube channel, but the front end of my YouTube channel shows 8. So it is really funny how the numbers don't jive up until you look at the back end of where everything is. We really appreciate everybody watching this. I do want to share the screen here for a second, and want to give Dr. Tammy Nemeth a shout out. What a great Substack report you've got going on here. Holy smokes. And we also have Irina's Substack. Please go out and subscribe to Irina slav.substack.com. Go to the Nemeth report.substack.com. Go to David Blackmon's Energy Editions, which is blackmon.substack.com, and go to the energynewsbeat.substack.com. Thank you for this commercial, and we appreciate your prompt attention to that matter. Thank you.
I want to know how Tammy created that wonderful illustration in the center of her landing page of Mr. Carney.
That
That's
was with
terrific.
Grok.
That was with
That was
Grok.
with
Yeah.
Grok.
Very
Yeah.
good.
It's
Grok's
getting much
all
better
the
at
time.
doing
Yeah.
pictures. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I ask it, I said, put on the bottom there that you created this, and it doesn't always do it.
I know. Yeah.
Are you not worried about this? Am I the only one who's worried about AI getting constantly better at doing things?
Well, I'm worried about
Yeah.
it, but the problem is if you ignore it, you're falling behind, right? And
I'll
so,
not ignore it, but
yeah.
I
don't
can't
know,
make
I don't-
images like that. I tried, and it takes me hours and hours and hours, and it
That's
takes
the appeal.
like a minute.
Yeah.
won't use it
Learning
for
how
my
to
writing.
ask it to do those things is great. I tell you, I did get on with John Bruton, who owns a patent. His company owns a patent for making sure that the hallucinations under AI requests are validated. And he has a oil company that bought eight. One of his customers has 8 oil companies. Those 8 oil companies that they bought have disparate business systems. Using AI and their accounting systems, he was able to take 2 months of it would take invoicing 2 months. He was able to bring that down to 2 minutes. So that's millions and millions of dollars saved that those oil companies are not having to use. So AI with validation is a good thing. AI without validation is the Wild West.
I think it comes down to how you use it and how it's being deployed. I'm a
Right.
bit concerned about. There's this whole idea of creating a digital twin of everything. I read an article the other day about one of the biggest forestry companies in the world, Weyerhaeuser, and how they're using AI to look at the different seedlings and trees and whatnot in order to tokenize it. So then it's like, okay, so if we're using AI to tokenize all the different natural assets, and then people can purchase bits of it. I mean, it's insane the way that some people want to deploy AI for these different tokenization things.
Yeah.
But that's another conversation.
That's scary. How did we get to EVs? You're all
Well,
right.
I'm not sure. Somebody made an
because-
offhand comment that the gas
I did
prices
on
would
the-
make
People are buying
everybody want
EV.
to buy an EV, and
Yeah.
boom, there we went in the comments.
Squirrel.
Not to mention the charging stations and
yeah.
like I think we talked about it before in the UK where they want to EVs are they tax per mile that you drive, but you have to prepay it. So if you have to estimate how far you think you're going to drive your EV, how many miles in a year, you have to prepay it. But then if you sell the EV before your term has completed what you've prepaid, you don't get the money back.
Sounds
That's
like a
Holy
wealth
smokes.
transfer to me.
Wow.
This is also a big one. Nobody's talking about the insurance pricing in the United States. I don't know about the EU or the UK. EV insurance rates for homes has skyrocketed. So that to me is do what?
Because of EVs and
Yes.
fire hazard.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so if you buy an EV, the best thing to do is put a barn on your back 40 and put the EV in the barn back there, and that'll help keep your insurance costs down.
Wait a minute. I lost my favorite quote here. Somebody said EVs are great as long as you have a generator in the boot. I like that one, Andrew. Good comment.
Here's a question. Will the oil prices get back down to 60 or those days gone? Those days are gone for now.
Well, if
and
we have a major recession,
Yeah, I
it'll
don't
kill
know.
demand, and prices will go back down.
I was about to say, here's the problem. We now have a balance between demand destruction and the lack of capital going into drill. The world is in, check my facts on this. I'm going to make some up. This is 90% of the world's oil and gas are in depleted states or fields. We need new exploration in order to get into new fields. That means that your prices eventually are going to go up anyway. Where's the glut? There was never a glut. It was a manufactured glut story. Sorry, there ain't no glut camp.
It was in the IEA's base case model. That's where the glut was.
And he kept talking about it on and on and on.
Yeah.
And they keep pushing it higher and higher.
Yeah.
So the answer is no. $60 oil is gone. It's going to be a balance. I don't know when it's going to come back. And the problem is going to be refineries. Oil is useless until you get to a refinery. Then it becomes something useful. Not all oil is created equal. The refineries look for the different blends. It is a complicated global economy that is not going to get fixed anytime soon. We are a year away from being fixed.
Well,
okay, I'm going to note that down.
And next week when prices go back down, we can say Stu was wrong.
I hope so.
It's going to go back to 60 though.
No, it won't.
You never know.
If you had a global depression, then demand would get destroyed and the market would rebalance and prices would go down to some level lower than they are. I don't know where.
But you're going to have.
I mean, in 2015 they went down to negative one day, negative 37. So, it can change very quickly. But you have to, when you're talking about these things, you have to say, well, barring a major depression and barring this and barring that and all other things being equal, we're going to be in this high price environment for the foreseeable future. But all things aren't always equal. There's 1,000 different things that impact oil prices. And one thing's for sure, I'm not going to ask for any more polls from y'all about where oil prices are going to be next Monday after that last fiasco that I missed so badly. So
nobody is ever right on oil prices, David.
I know.
Unless you get lucky.
That's right.
Lucky.
Yeah.
So
the only thing
if you knew where oil prices were going, we'd all be fabulously wealthy. Right?
Exactly.
The only thing I'm saying about oil prices right now is the disparate between paper and physical is so huge that it is very unlikely that it will go down because physical usually matches delivery price in the trading world.
That's
and go ahead.
No, I was going to say that that's what a lot of people don't think about. They look at the benchmark prices. It's manageable. No, we don't have the oil that we had 2 months ago. We have a lot less of it now. This is an actual supply crisis, unlike the 2020 when it was a demand crisis because of lockdowns. There was too much oil, not enough demand, basically. Now it's the other way around. I think it's going to hurt. How bad is it in Europe? Well, I don't know. My petrol bill is up by 17 euro cents or something, from 1.29 in late February to 1.46 now. So
per liter, so that's equates to about what, $4.80 US dollars equivalent, because the conversion's like 3.87.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's about. That would equate to about $4.50 a gallon US dollars.
Yeah, but we generally pay more than you for fuel. So
yeah.
It's not dramatic yet.
That's not.
Yet.
But like in the UK, it's like $8.10 US equivalent.
UK is
in
very
Germany,
bad,
it's $9.50.
Yeah. So like diesel's more than petrol, and
always
the gap has gone quite significantly higher since the beginning of March. So if I give you an example, on February 2nd, it was £1.40 a liter for diesel. And this week, or on April 20th, it was £1.91 for diesel. So it's gone up by 50 pence.
Yeah.
And, it's significant. Now, the petrol hasn't gone up quite as much to the same extent as diesel. So petrol was about £1.31 per liter, and now it's £1.57. So the
$6.
increase,
Yeah.
yeah. And what we noticed is that all of the different gas stations, the gas chains, they're staying all about the same. So there hasn't been as much competition, because if you went past Costco, you would see that the Costco price was, 10 pence a liter cheaper than everywhere else, but now it's the same as everywhere else. So I don't know if they had a big meeting with Starmer back when this all started, and we noticed that all the prices seem to stay the same at all the different service stations. Now, maybe that's just anecdotal in our region. Maybe that, I don't know. But in any event, there doesn't seem to be the same kind of competition that we saw before with the service stations.
Do you guys think nuclear will be the answer for the future?
Yep.
For the grid, for sure.
For electricity. Yeah.
Yes. Electricity doesn't make all the stuff we need that gets produced from oil.
Yeah.
Like this morning on BBC Radio 4, they were interviewing this author, this chemist who wrote a book called, I forget what it's called, Chain Reaction. And she was like, you can complain about hydrocarbons or whatever, but plastics save people's lives. And if you just ban all plastics, people will die. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, in the UK.
They let us say it on the air.
Yeah,
that's
I was
amazing.
surprised. And the other scientists sitting there were like, yeah, that's absolutely right. I'm like, oh my gosh, really? Can you please tell the minister?
Gary, I thought Saudi was using their long pipelines to avoid the blockade. Yes, but the problem is you've got about a ballpark 18 million barrels per day that were going through the strait. I need to check that number. And now you've got 5 million to 6 million barrels per day that they are bypassing it. Total pipeline avoidance of the Strait of Hormuz is about 9 million barrels per day on all the pipelines avoiding the strait.
Yeah.
So you're still short 10 million barrels. We're that doesn't count the amount of wells that are being shut in. It doesn't count everything else. That's another major issue about to happen. Nobody's really calculating in. Iran's got 3.5 average million barrels per day. If they start shutting in their wells, they are a low pressure system in their reserves. Low pressure systems don't come back online very easily. It is going to be a huge problem for Iran when they start shoring in. They brought out one of their tankers. They've got 3 other tankers lined up. They're trying to scramble to save and keep pumping so that they don't turn them off. The moment they turn them off, they may not come in. Saudi Arabia has already had shuttered in several of theirs, but because they can keep theirs flowing, they're not having nearly the problem. So you have how many wells are being shut in the Gulf states, but nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about the refining capacity in the world is down between 5 and 7% from the drones being bombed around the world. There is absolutely a mess in the refining stage.
Maybe that'll inspire countries to build refineries, even though they do take some time.
Energy security starts at home, and you better start building now.
Yeah. And not pretend that there's not going to be another crisis. Oh, it'll take too long.
I think once people start, I want to give Orban a shout out from Hungary. He actually cares about his country. And it's actually about your countries. When leaders wake up and start taking care of your citizens, your countries, you will actually be successful. You can't join a group therapy hug and call it a consortium and a tribal thing and saying we're going to trade and we're going to be best friends. Bullcrap. You got to take care of your country first.
Nobody else is going to do it for you.
Nope.
And
Can
so
we just
there
be
we
friends?
Can't we just be friends?
David, we're going to go around the horn here and just everybody have a last word, and then we're going to sign out. This was a lot of fun.
If you're watching on YouTube, listening on any other platform, there's a like and subscribe button. Please do. It doesn't cost you anything but a couple of seconds, and it sure would help us. Thank you.
Irina.
Thanks for all the comments. Some of them are really amusing. All of them are great. Have a great week and affordable energy prices.
Dr. Nemeth, how are you?
Good. Keep an eye out for what's happening in Canada. There's rumors that Alberta has rejected the industrial carbon tax agreement with the federal government, but we'll see if that's true. So stay tuned for next week.
Ooh, what does that mean?
It's part of this whole memorandum of understanding that was signed between Alberta and Ottawa in December, that all of these things are predicated on Alberta accepting this really high industrial carbon tax at a time when it makes no sense. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Do you think Alberta and Saskatchewan may become independent, or is that just a pipe dream for them?
Alberta's the only one who's proposing a referendum on it. Saskatchewan hasn't. So we'll see what happens. It's supposed to take place in October.
That's a perfect example of leaders not taking care of energy policies and their people.
Yep.
All right. Hey, let's have a great week. Hey, everybody, thank you for all of our great subscribers and everybody. We sure appreciate everybody. This will be out on all of our channels on Substack very soon. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.